The barnstormers were grounded long ago, and no one could ever accuse a respectable aviator like Ben Buckley of being daredevil or crazy. He's just a football supporter who likes to give a bit extra to his local team.
Get the ground green anyway.
Ben's sporting gesture is a traditional boost for the boys from Benambra.
Ever since I was a little kid, he's been doing that.
What sort of response does he get?
Oh, people love him. People love him.
Well, he's Benambra, and when we see him flying around, and there he goes, well, we know what he's going to do. The opposition mightn't, but we know, and I mean, that's Benambra, and it revs us up, and it gives us a hell of a lift out on the footy field.
What, to be covered in super?
Well, I say it makes you grow, does wonders for you, does wonders for the grass.
Oh, that doesn't hurt them much. That's only light, fluffy stuff. Shakes them up a bit. Make their hair grow.
They don't look like they're enjoying it that much sometimes.
Oh, they put on a show for you fellas.
Whenever Ben Buckley rolls his chariot out of the hangar, the Bush Telegraph spins another legend. A century ago, by the Snowy River, they might have yarned about a kid riding his mountain pony. But today, they cackle about the time that Ben flew under the Orbost Bridge, and the two Irishmen who dived from the bridge in horror. But Ben says it's all just a tall tale.
I think they'd been on the trumpet lilies. You know, down there in the Snowy, they have these little lilies things, and they, if you boil them up or something, or eat them, chew them, you suffer from hallucinations. Well, I think those Irishmen had been on the trumpet lilies.
And they hallucinated a plane going under the bridge as they were standing
Yeah, they must have been. They must have been hallucinating, yeah.
Well, they say that a good story improves with the telling, and Ben reckons that you can't believe any of what you hear. Like the claim that locals make that Ben checks his eyesight every morning by flying between two poplars. Of course, modern aviators like Ben just don't do that sort of thing. And cameraman Mike Jones, sitting beside Ben for this leisurely cruise, was very grateful for Ben's comforting advice.
That's the cemetery down there, Mike. We don't want to finish up in there, do we? This early in the day.
He's a ripper.
A ripper?
Yeah. He'd have a job to find a better one, I think.
Athol Clark is one of hundreds of farmers who marvel at Ben's skill as an agricultural spreader.
It's just as likely to fly through between your television antenna and your chimney as he goes over the house sometimes.
Even Ben makes mistakes. Once he crashed into the side of Mount Borbor. He climbed out and walked 10 kilometres to find help.
Yeah, run into a mountain.
What happened?
Finished up with a mouthful of gum leaves and snow, mate. A long walk home.
Ben has lost his pilot's licence 9 times, though you won't hear one complaint in Benambra, where he's loved and lauded.
In history's page, every state advance Australia fair.
They've even elected him Shire President, and you wonder just how his predecessors in the Shire's top office would judge President Ben Buckley.
Shouldn't a Shire President be a crusty old fart who, sits in an office and, doesn't go around dive-bombing footballers?
Oh, I don't know about the old fart bit. I think they do that too. I think the Shire President farts the same as anybody else.
If he flew like he sings, he'd be in trouble, wouldn't he? Well, Ben Buckley has now been grounded permanently. The Department of Aviation has taken away Ben's pilot's licence, largely as a result of what you've seen on that film. But they haven't charged him with anything. They have just used special powers to ground him, and he has no say at all. Ben reckons he's been denied natural justice, and the local people agree. More than 1,000 of them have signed a petition asking the department to give their local hero a break. And Ben does need his licence for his livelihood.
Ben Buckley is not your average pilot. And if you think you can spot a certain sprightliness in some of those turns, you're right. He's just got his commercial pilot's licence back after 3 years suspension by aviation authorities. And about the only things that surpass Ben's reputation as a flyer are his legendary battles with bureaucrats.
When you get bureaucrats making laws, bypassing the parliamentary system, and having regulations like these aviation regulations here, where they can, even if they think that you might be going to do something wrong, they can deprive you of your livelihood arbitrarily. That's a blatant denial of natural justice.
And could you be accused of a bit of bloody-mindedness back against the bloody-minded bureaucrats?
Equally as bloody, and getting bloodier.
Ben's been locking horns with aviation authorities for about 30 years. But the straw that broke the camel's back was a stunt for the Willesee program back in 1987, when he gave the local footy team a dose of superphosphate.
Get the ground green anyway.
It was a stage play. It was rehearsed, staged. The footballers were paid. The whole thing was completely legal. It's just what the authorities liked to make of it.
Which was to throw the book at him.
I believe that Mr. Buckley is incorrigible, a person who considers that laws only exist for the purpose of being broken. In my opinion, this leaves little choice but to deny Mr. Buckley a licence.
But the locals know the other side of the former mayor of Omeo. Down in the pub, they'll gladly tell you how much he's done for the area.
He's a lovable person, he's a rogue. The people love him because of that quality that he's uniquely Ben Buckley.
Well, he's a friggin' dag, isn't he?
Councillor Mick Seymour has known Ben for 30 years.
As a help-out sort of a person, firebombing, accidents and things like that, he's been always on the spot, and I think that I think we're very lucky to have Ben in our area.
Edo Calvi will testify to that. Every time he walks to college, Edo has Ben to thank. As a 2-year-old, Edo's left foot was torn off in an agricultural accident. At a moment's notice, Ben flew him from Bairnsdale to Melbourne, ignoring orders to turn back when fog closed Essendon Airport. Because of his swift actions, doctors at St Vincent's were able to save Edo's foot, a world first on such a small patient.
I got movement and feeling. That was pretty amazing for the doctors. They didn't think it would happen. And I'm just very happy of really having it on.
Good as new, eh?
Good as new.
Crop dusting is spectacular and dangerous work. But ask Ben if he flies unsafely and you'll get a quick response.
Well, I'm still here, aren't I? What is unsafe flying? Is ag flying safe or what? You know, you take the necessary precautions. If you're overcautious, you wouldn't even bother starting. So I don't think safety comes into it, really. It's a matter of getting the job done quickly and efficiently and the most economically as possible.
I get the impression you have a bit of fun, though, when you're up there as well.
Oh, I enjoy it, yeah.
Aerial spreading is rather taken for granted in some places, but up here, it's the key to opening up the land. Cattleman Graham Connolly says Ben's work makes him as important to the area as its earliest settlers were.
He sort of made a lot of viable country out of useless country. You know, the country that he opened up with his super plane. I don't know how the people would have kept on going, really. To do it like Ben Buckley done it, well, I don't think that, you know, there may be someone to do it as good, but no one will do it ever any better. That's the way I look at him anyway.
That's great. Ben says it's only the support of the locals that's kept him flying in the face of official hostility.
So you still got the fire in your belly to fight the department the way you had?
My enemies, yes.
And in typical Buckley fashion, he took his message directly to a rather bemused minister.
As I understand these things, this is done under some sort of administrative process to making
it was another good day's work for Ben, who swears he'll go on bashing bureaucrats to his last breath.
Hello again. Sometimes you have to wonder at the human capacity for adventure. Take daredevil Victorian pilot Ben Buckley, for example. Tomorrow he'll embark on one of the last great challenges when he attempts to fly an ultralight aircraft non-stop from Australia to New Zealand. As Richard Forbes reports, that's unlikely to faze the 63-year-old who's lost his pilot licence 12 times for trying breathtaking stunts.
You like to live dangerous, you know. You understand the value of being alive if you live dangerous.
He'll go where other pilots wouldn't dare go. He's fearless.
What sort of bloke is he, your dad?
To be honest?
Yeah.
He's a crazy old bastard. I want to tell you a story of a man that I know, how he's made a living flying real low.
To Ben Buckley's daughter, Sonia, and just about everyone else in the high country, Ben's about as close to a living legend as you can get.
I don't think he has an equal in this country for that type of flying.
This eccentric, fun-loving bush pilot has been flying around Benambra and the high country for 40 years. Yet with nothing left to prove, Ben's about to embark on one of his biggest challenges ever.
Show us the cockpit, because you've had to really sort that out for the flight to New Zealand, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm carrying about 1/4 of a tonne of fuel, actually.
That's about what the plane weighs, I suppose.
Yes, Ben's decided he wants to be the first person ever to fly a two-stroke, ultralight aircraft from Australia to New Zealand. And the preparations are almost complete.
Now, part of the object of this exercise is to keep the costs down as well.
Yep.
It's a bit of a shoestring. I've intercepted these containers on their way to the tip to show that you can do these things, you know, on a bit of a budget.
He's got a heart full of courage and adventure a soul. And nothing will stop him when his mind's on a goal.
Ben Buckley has always had a passion for adventure. He's flown throughout the world, accumulating a staggering 25,000 flying hours, mostly in agricultural aircraft, which is why he can fly so low, so well.
So exactly how many crashes have you had?
Oh, a couple of real good ones, a couple of totals, yeah.
It is the most dangerous form of flying there is. For the record, we didn't ask Ben to fly under these power lines, he just did it.
He saved a few lives in his time, being able to get out when others wouldn't have been able to.
Oh, I shot myself with a shotgun, blew a hole through myself.
Renowned high country horseman Ken Conley is one of a number of people who wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Ben.
He talked the air ambulance into coming and landing on a property that I own there, actually now. And if it hadn't been for Ben's reputation, no way known would they have came.
But it's Ben's antics he'd rather talk about.
When I used to train my horses for these bush races and that, and I used to train up along the hills there, and he'd come in behind me and wouldn't hear him coming. Next thing, over the top of the horse. Well, I get a bit more out of my horse anyway.
What about flying under bridges?
Well, the only bridges I've flown under, you could nearly do aerobatics under them.
But you lost your licence for that too, didn't you?
Oh, no, I got away with that. Lack of evidence, my friend. Lack of evidence. But when they say safety first, if everything was safety first, you wouldn't even bother to get out of bed. You've got to be prepared to take some sort of a reasonable risk if you're going to achieve anything.
He's got a philosophy, has he, that to live every day like it's your last, is that it?
Well, yeah, I think that if you have that philosophy in life, you can never go wrong because you live it to the fullest. This next stint that he's on, he's got us all a bit worried. But I guess we just have to have faith that he's got his logistics right and that he makes it to New Zealand. So, Dad, we wish you well on the journey of life.
Now, how are you going to tell the time, Ben?
Oh, here we are. Look, I've got me floaty clock.
Can you swim all right, just in case?
Well, I'll hang on to the clock.
What will it mean to you when you touch down in New Zealand?
Ah, well, I'll have achieved something that I wanted to do for a long, long time.
I speak for all of our family when I say that we love you. Yes, I speak for all of our family when I say we all love you.
The 63-year-old pilot left Malakuta in Victoria early yesterday morning. He flew direct to Haast in southwestland, arriving just before 8 last night. Fiona Cumming reports.
11.5 hours over the Tasman Sea.
I'll be there in about less than 20 minutes, hopefully.
Haast's tiny airstrip, a welcome sight for the pilot of this tiny aircraft.
Good on you, mate.
Disembarking after hours in the cramped cabin,
I've been here a long time.
something of a struggle for the 63-year-old aviator. Worth it to become the first microlight across the Tasman.
This is a sort of caper you only need to do it once. A bit like Charles Lindbergh. I know how he felt now.
A small crowd to help celebrate.
Shake it. Pour on the ground, do what you have to do.
Among the well-wishers, son Ryan pleased to see his dad on terra firma.
It's good that he's finally made it. I didn't really have any doubts that he wouldn't.
And having finally made it, just one urgent matter to take care of, no room for conveniences on his aircraft. And even in this remote spot, no escaping red tape.
Just take your passport.
The flight was not entirely smooth sailing, the fuel tanks literally a headache.
I started to get a bit confused, you know, with the fuel fumes and the lack of oxygen.
Ben Buckley won't be making the return flight on his little machine, hoping now to find a Kiwi buyer for the first microlight to cross the Tasman. Fiona Cumming, One Network News.
I want to tell you a story of a